you very much, and it's sad when we leave, we're not going to listen to you.
I may end up in your market one of these days.
I hope you will come to Saudi Arabia and make sure like here. Okay, Bob, I just have 2 words I want to make. I live in a near an Arab community. I have many friends who work very hard to come to this country to find a good life for their family. And the media makes the whole Arab, as a terrorist, and they are not good people. And I hear you are always talk about the black rights, which is right, you do. Last 6 months, they have Arabs who want to open a store in their community, black community.
Mm-hmm.
And the black community opposed their rights to have a store inside their community. I just want to ask you, it's a free country. You can do whatever you want as long as you're citizen here. Do they have rights to do that or not?
Well, first of all, yes, indeed, they do have a right. But secondly, I think that you're misunderstanding. It's not that the black community doesn't want Arabs to come in and open stores. The black community does have some complaints with some Arabs who have done just that, and it's primarily one of communication and language.
Yeah.
And that is a major problem.
That's correct. I know it's a problem. But they came to this country like Spanish, who live their whole their life. They don't speak English. They just go.
Colleges where Circle started out at Navy Pier. It was free to go to college. Then when my other children went to Circle campus, it was $225 a quarter. Now it's about $1,500 a quarter. You could go to school in those days. I was lucky.
Which years would these be that you're talking about?
Back during the Vietnam War.
Well, yeah, it lasted a pretty long time. I was talking about the very early 1960s.
Yeah, well, my first son was 63. He went to IIT.
Okay, well, there weren't any free schools where I came from.
Yeah, I was going to say, people in Chicago were lucky in those days. It's very difficult now. What I was going to say, my great concern about the metropolitan Chicago area is the fact that the blacks and the Irish could have a confrontation in Chicago sometime. And I feel that the blacks would win and chase all the Irish out here to the suburbs.
The blacks and the Irish?
Yeah, and they could chase all the Irish out here to the suburbs. We don't want them out here, you know. 14 years ago, my son attended IIT College in Chicago. And they took a black over to Mayor Daley's ward. The black was from a royal African family. They went into a tavern, and the Irish in Mayor Daley's district just beat the heck out of this black. Of course, it kind of makes sense to me because I'm Anglican Irish, too, you know. But we both like to throw bombs, you know, as Irish into each other's school buses in Ireland. And, of course, I'm saved. I'm part Cherokee Indian blood, so I'm not that bad anymore. But it still worries me about Mayor Daley's district in Chicago and the blacks. But one thing I want to say, I want to congratulate your station. You're leaving a lot of blacks come on the air. And I think that's good for Chicago.
Okay. I don't know what to do with that. I really don't. 591-8900 on an open afternoon. Off it is this time to a payphone. Hi there, Pay. You're on the air, WLS.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
I'd like to tell you and say you were right on about the draft thing.
A lot of people forget that.
Yeah, because I was in high school at that time, and I was in the MEROTC program there. And before graduation, one of the colonels came in, and I heard him ask my sergeant there for the names of all his graduating ROTC officers that weren't going to college. And by darn, every one of us got a draft notice.
Oh, yeah. I think I had to draft somebody.
Oh, yeah, and every one of us had to go because we were black. We didn't have the money to go, so we didn't know all the other alternatives and tricks that everybody else knew. Including,
basically, if you called them up and quietly said no, they basically left you alone.
Yeah, well, if I had called up and said no, they'd come get me and take me away.
Well, again, I guess it kind of depended on your draft board, but there were a lot of draft boards that had that policy. They didn't want to rock the boat. They didn't want to upset the community and start hauling off everybody's kid to jail.
Oh, I'd just say thanks for bringing it up and pointing out the real issue of the day.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Be good. 5918900 Off it is this time to Western Springs. Hi there, Western. You're on the air, WLS.
Hi, Bob. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
I originally called up with a topic completely different than what you're talking about right now.
Well, it's an open day, so there's no such thing as the topic I'm talking about right now.
Okay, but I would like to comment about what you're discussing now.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things is because of the debacle in Vietnam, probably in Korea, for sure in Grenada, Lebanon, that, and especially in light of what's going on in Central America, I think we all have to be very cautious on what we accept from our government as being truth and policy. We're into this war on drugs now, and as an excuse for that, many of our personal freedoms have been taken away from us.
Well, no, they haven't. We're trying desperately to give them back. That's what's so damn scary.
How do you mean?
Well, virtually everybody in this country is in favor of forced drug testing and doing this and doing that. It's not so much like they're trying to take them away from us as we're trying to give them back.
I see. And, you know, to diverge a little bit from that, the whole issue about burning the American flag and disgracing, the American symbol, we want to roll that into a constitutional amendment. I think one of our basic freedoms that we all should cherish very much is in criticizing the government, and that to be able to burn the symbol as a symbol should make them understand that you can't pull the wool over everybody's eyes all the time.
Well, that's not the way I see it. I am very upset when somebody burns a flag, but the way I see it is as distasteful as it is to me. And it is distasteful. It is still an expression. It is a political expression. And on top of that, I'd rather know who was so distressed with the country as to burn its flag than to not know.
Well, that's what I meant. You had a better way of expressing it. The government... With Vietnam, I think demonstrated a lot of stupidity, short-sightedness, just one error after another. Who knows what their intentions were, even if they knew what their intentions were. And whenever they take and invade a country for whatever reason, I just... I'm very shocked that there's so much support given to that type of behavior by the American citizens.
Well, come on now, wait a second. The American citizen was sold that war as a patriotic war, as a good, right, proper, moral, decent thing to do. Aside from the fact that it was a war of egos of the men running it, it was sold to the American people as your patriotic duty.
It's shocking that it was purchased by the people as a patriotic...
Well, nobody wants to believe that his government is lying to him, or maybe lying is a strong word, stretching the truth when there are lives involved. And nobody wants to believe that.
And what a price to pay, lives and broken bodies, for the agenda of the government.
Well, there's another thing that a lot of Americans tend to forget. There were very few lives and broken bodies of the sons of members of Congress and the Senate.
And
very few.
You're exactly right. One comment that I wanted to make there.
Could I ask you to make it quickly because I've got to go to a traffic report here.
Okay, I heard your commentary about how buying foreign goods contributes to welfare. And that was, maybe a couple months ago. And I've just been on the road and haven't had time to call in. And I just want to tell you how right on that is. And if the American population would say, I'm not going to buy foreign goods, I'm going to buy American goods, that it would reduce the deficit and put more people into work and off of welfare.
Would solve so many of our problems. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
591-8900, one line or 43 cents available. Cloudy with rain or freezing rain tonight. Occasional rain possibly mixed with snow and sleet tomorrow. An overnight low of 32. Only 35 for a high tomorrow. The old mercury ain't going to get too much of a workout. Right now, it's about 37, 36 along the lake. Go to the northwest side of Chicago. Hi there, Northwest. You're on here at WLS.
Yes, sir. And thank you for allowing me to make a comment. My comment was about the callers that called in earlier, the Arab lady, concerning the black store. Basically, I wonder, does she understand that that it's not that we don't appreciate the Arabs coming into the community and doing business, but it's what they bring with them, which is like the food. Sometimes the food be very bad. There's no respect for the people that do purchase. And so,
well, let's be honest with each other. Many business people who do business in a ghetto-type community, be they Arab or white or Jewish or Catholic or Irish or black even sometimes, tend to take advantage of the population, the neighborhood, because they know the people don't have the means to go out in the suburbs and go to a nice shiny supermarket. It's not just Arabs. It's almost everybody that does business in the community.
Well, see, the point I was trying to make is that this, is not only that, it's that also, like, many times there have been reports of guns being pulled on young children. Matter of fact, a couple of times a couple of young children have been shot. And, so...
Yeah, but not because they're Arabs, just because they're people who are taking advantage of a situation, people who are in a neighborhood where they feel very, very uncomfortable. It's not because they're Arabs. It's just because it has been that way in the black community and many other poor communities for forever.
Well, at this present time, I'm talking about the Arab situation.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, it's not because they're Arab.
It's true. No, I'm not saying because they were Arab. I'm just saying, making a statement, a fact, of some of the things that have happened, and why that many of the black, much of the black leadership has begun to take another view of the Arab situation. And secondly, I would like to talk about this separatist thing concerning Farrakhan. I don't think Mr. Farrakhan is a separatist. Now, I'm a separatist.
I guess I haven't heard him speak then.
Yeah, well, I'm a separatist, but I'm not a racist. I just don't believe that...
White people who are separatists are racist, but black people who are separatists are not racist.
No, well, okay, let me explain that. Please, let me explain that. Now, when I say that I'm a separatist, I just believe, and I don't have no hatred toward anyone, and I'm sincere with it. I am not a black supremacist or one of those kind of things.
No, David Duke says he doesn't hate black people either.
Well, maybe you don't. I agree with some of the things that Mr. Duke says, other than, as far as separatism, yeah. I fully agree with that.
Not surprised,
And most people, if they were honest, and be honest with themselves, they would also, you know what, Mr., if you could put most people right now, including the so-called liberals and all that bunch together, whether it be black or white, and if you really put them into a room and put them and hooked them all up to a lie detector test and gave them a lie detector test, I am willing to bet you that 90% of them would agree with Mr. Duke or with myself. Okay? You don't have to. See, the thing is, people, to be honest with you, all right?
Well, you're probably right. 90% of them would agree with you, but 90% of that 90% fight it. That's the difference. Because they know it's wrong. I have a lot of views that I know are wrong.
It's not wrong.
Yeah, it is wrong. It is wrong to tell somebody that he can't live where he wants to live, can't work where he wants to work, can't go to school where he wants to go to school.
No one is saying that.
Can't marry who he wants to marry.
That's what you're saying.
Well, it's wrong, and most people know it.
But see, now listen. If you want a true statement of fact, but all I'm saying is this. If you cannot live with the person, this is like right now, in your father's home, you were talking about your father before your father died. Okay, in your father's home, when you lived in your father's home, you had to have certain responsibilities.
But I don't know what that has to do with racism.
This is WLS, Talk Radio 890.
WLS.
Chicago. At the sound of the tone, 5 o'clock.
Talk. Here's Bob Lassiter.
Welcome back, Fun Seekers. A Friday. That's the day that comes before Saturday and Sunday. January the 19th, 1990. Lassiter with you at WLS Talk Radio 890, Chicago's talk station. A very, very special edition of the Bob Lassiter Show today. In celebration of the weekend. Yeah, that's the ticket. Open phones. Bolingbrook, hi, Bowling. You're on the air at WLS.
Good evening, Bob. This is Bob from Bolingbrook. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
I wanted to talk to you about the show that you had with the high school kids Wednesday night.
Uh-huh.
I thought that was a great show.
They're great kids. I love doing that.
I really enjoyed that. Do you have any plan to do another one?
I'd like to do one, about every month, 4 to 6 weeks, just from all over the place, just a different bunch of kids. I've done, I think, in my career about 5 of them, and only one group of kids did I really dislike. All the other kids I've always really enjoyed.
I know, that was really a good show. It brought out, a lot of what they think about what's going on. If I could make a suggestion, there would only be one thing I might do different or even try different.
Sure, what's that?
Go ahead and prompt them with some questions ahead of time. As a for instance, we've talked about, or you have talked about with the listeners, what would they do with, like the problems of the ghettos? And they said, well, put more money into it. And, of course, the next question is, well, how would you do it? And you ask them, a couple of the harder issue questions, but they hadn't had any time to think about it. I would really like to find out what they would do and what they would change in society to go ahead and try to solve some of those problems. I think it would really be refreshing to find out, maybe the kids have got a great approach to it.
That's a very valid suggestion. There's also a very valid reason for doing it the way I do it, but I may well give some consideration to that. The reason I do it that way is because I'd like to see if they really have thought about it, if they really do have an answer on the top of their heads.
Mm-hmm.
But both points of attack are valid. I'll give some thought to yours.
Or another thing you could do, and, this would be a little bit different than what you said about having another group. Now that you've met them and gotten through some of the, just easy discussion, you could go ahead, send them the questions, and have the same group back. Let them talk about it in school, talk about it with some of their friends.
Yeah, that's a good idea,
Talk about it with some of their teachers and see what do the kids think the adults should do.
That's a real good idea. I like that idea, as a matter of fact.
Well, thank you.
It's also a lot easier to book that kind of a show once they've already done it and enjoyed themselves. Much easier. They're both good ideas.
Good. I'm glad that you like them.
I do, and I thank you for them.
Thank you very much for your time.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
591-8900, 591-8900. Wonder Lake. Hi there, Wonder. You're on the air at WLS.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
Back in 1965, I enlisted in the Marine Corps. I was a gung-ho young man. I didn't have any idea what the war in Vietnam was about, but I had hoped that during the course of boot camp, they would explain to me what we were doing there. And that was my feelings at the time. And incidentally, while I was in boot camp, there was all white boys, white Anglo-Saxons. There might have been a couple of black guys, but if there were, they got along with the whites. Everybody liked everybody else, but it wasn't like mostly black or mostly Spanish or anything like that. Anyhow,
I was talking about the draft. I was talking about the draft, and it was never mostly black, mostly Spanish, but the blacks and the Hispanics were grossly overrepresented in comparison to the percentage of the population.
So it didn't seem that way in 1965 in the Marine Corps.
They weren't drafting them in the Marine Corps.
Oh, that's true. So anyway, after boot camp, I met some people who were of the attitude that the war in Vietnam was being fought for economic reasons, and that the only reason we were there was to make money for the rich people back in the States.
I don't believe that. There were people who profited from it and were damn glad to see it go on, but I don't believe it was fought for economic reasons.
At the time, I believed that. I actually came to believe that, and that's why I left. That's one of the reasons that I left.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always regretted that, because now, many years later, I look back, and I think the reason we were there was because it was a matter of where do we draw the line? Do we wait until the communists are coming up at Florida and Mexico? or do we stop communist?
Sir, have you ever known communism to take a foothold in a country where there was democracy, where there was a strong middle class, where there was home ownership, where there was not a great disparity between the haves and the have-nots? Have you ever known communism to take hold in a country like that?
Well, I think it's usually a situation.
No, you haven't, sir.
Well, no, I don't know of any such situation, but I think it's usually a situation of are the people going to be represented in their government, or is it going to be the government will be thrust upon them, a communistic government, a totalitarian government? And I think at the time the United States felt that in any case where the people weren't represented, that they should step in and try to change the odds a little bit. And I think we still think that way.
Yeah, if we think that we're not going to get much resistance.
That's right. Like if it happens in China or in Europe, that's a different situation.
Exactly. They're good communists. They're our buddies. They're our trading partners. It's always where we think the resistance is going to be nil.
Well, we probably shouldn't have got into Vietnam, but I think that was the actual reason we were there.
You know, which kind of sometimes makes you wonder, and I hate to think thoughts like this, but it kind of sometimes makes you wonder if we do things like Grenada, if we do things like Panama, and even if we did something like Vietnam, not so much because of any noble cause, but so that the officers can train.
Well, that's a heck of an excuse. You know, I've got two friends that they're going to be commissioned into the Army. They're in college, and they're going to go into the Army. And I told them, I said that the United States has to draw a hard line in South America. But at the same time, I don't want to see them go there, and I'd hate to see them get hurt down there. But we do have to maintain a hard line.
Well, the best way to start to fight communism is, things like schools and hospitals and jobs.
Well, it's not so much communism anymore. It's, injustice and that sort of thing.
Well, injustice we do have to take a hard line on, because oppression is oppression regardless of the politics. Tyranny is tyranny regardless of the politics.
That's right.
And that's what we should be most concerned about, as opposed to just the politics.
As well as all these drugs and things like that coming up from there, too. That's Bush's position. He's just going to wipe out drugs, and that's all there is to it.
Well, he says a lot of interesting things, most of them amusing. No, he's not going to wipe out drugs.
Well, if anybody can, he will, but I hope he doesn't.
Well, that's right, sir. If anybody can, he will. The problem is nobody can.
That's probably true.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. 591-89001 line available. Joliet, hi. You're on the air at WLS.
Yeah, whereas in times past...
Are you on a speakerphone?
Yeah, whereas in times past the prejudice was against blacks and Jews and Hispanics, I believe now it's more geared towards towards religious minorities.
Religious minorities, prejudice? What did you have in mind?
Okay, for instance, you can take the case out in Los Angeles where the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles and Rachel Andrews, who represents that, is coming against a Christian-owned business out there, Alamo Design, because the fact that the company employs born-again Christians and Jews, Hispanics, and blacks. Rachel Andrus has made it her duty to go around to the major news media and to the accounts that Alamo Design has and tell them that it's a cult. Because she says that, well, for one thing, she wrote a book. And in her book, she says that any work can be judged whether it be good or bad by...
Well, what is the evidence that she's presenting that would indicate to her it's a cult?
Well, she doesn't have any evidence.
Well, come on. She's not just walking around saying it's a cult and doing any damage.
Well,
so she must be saying something.
Our company has $250 million lawsuits filed in the greater Los Angeles.
That's not what I asked you, and it's interesting to say our company. What is it that could possibly lead her to believe it's a cult?
Well, because it hires born-again Christians, and we were given a lot of our designs. We make an exclusive designer jacket, and this Rachel Andrus takes exception to Tony Alamo, who gave us a lot of our...
Oh, Tony Alamo. A lot of people take exception to Tony Alamo, like almost any decent individual on the face of the earth.
Well, I mean, why?
Tony Alamo is a man who preaches the most ungodly hatred. Tony Alamo is a man who offends virtually everybody. Tony Alamo is a man who lies through his teeth. Tony Alamo is a paranoid.
No, you're the liar.
Yeah, right. Tony Alamo tells his followers that the Pope is running the country, that the Pope is in cahoots with the CIA. He publishes pictures of the most disgusting, disgusting kind.
The Vatican's role during World War II in the annihilation of Jews.
You guys aren't swift enough to be a cult. You're just a bunch of jerks and hate mongers.
The fact that the Nazi Party and the Roman Catholic Church signed a concordance during World War II to win the world for Catholicism.
Yeah.
He exposed the fact that the national media nowadays has been infiltrated by the Roman Catholic institution, Opus Dei.
Right. Yeah.
And, true born-again Christians...
Oh, what, not the Jews? Excuse me, I thought the national media was run by the Jews, sir.
Pardon?
I thought the national media was run by the Jews.
No, we never said that.
Oh.
The thing about it is, Tony...
Then why are the Jews out to get you, sir?
Okay, because this Rachel Andrus is not really a Jew.
She's a Catholic!
She's posing as a Jew, and she's really a Roman Catholic.
Yeah. You see, sir, like I said, you guys are not swift enough to be a cult. I agree with you. You're not a cult. You're not swift enough to be a cult. You're just a bunch of hate mongers.
No, I mean, you're the hate monger. You're an animal basher.
Yeah, right. So I'm a hate monger.
Yeah, you really are.
Yeah.
You know something? You can't talk one-on-one on any subject. All you can do is throw out your lies and innuendos and slander.
Right.
You know the thing? I got facts to back up everything I'm saying.
Sure you do. Tony's pamphlets, I know. Yeah, you got Tony's pamphlets. They're your facts, aren't they, boy? You got Tony's pamphlets. They're your facts.
No, I got...
The ramblings of a lunatic. They're your facts. And you're not swift enough to know what a fact is.
Answer that question. Do you think Simon Wiesenthal is a lunatic?
No, I don't, sir.
Okay, well, we get our information from his library.
Amazing.
All right, it is amazing. And plus, you can go to the Library of Congress. What information have you... What information? Oh, he doesn't know that he can't be heard while I'm talking. That's okay, because I'll just keep talking until he shuts up. Because he's going to answer the damn question I'm asking. And if he doesn't answer the question, nobody's going to hear him. Now, what information did you get from Wiesenthal's library, sir? Okay. Have you ever been there, by the way? Not myself. I didn't think so. To be really honest with you, I didn't really feel like working today. I was kind of burned out. Just a little bit burned out for the week. But there's something happening that is getting my adrenaline pumping, that is making me so glad to be here this afternoon. There's some people in this country who are so stupid, they think everybody else is stupid. Wait till you hear this next call. It's been holding since the last call. North Side, Chicago. Hi, North. You're on the air at WLS.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Tony Lamo's a jerk, isn't he?
No, he's not. I don't think he's a jerk at all.
You don't?
No.
Oh.
No.
What's the name of his church, by the way?
What's the name of his church?
Yeah.
It's called the Holy Alamo Christian Church.
The Holy Alamo Christian Church.
Yeah.
Funny, most people don't put their name in the name of their church, but that's okay.
I think it's called Alamo Rental Cars, Alamo this. If you want to know how the name got started.
No, it's Alamo. It's not Alamo. It's Alamo. It's Tony Alamo, not Alamo.
Huh?
It's Tony Alamo, not Alamo.
Right.
Right. So what are you telling me, about Alamo car rentals?
Huh? It's called the Holy Alamo Christian Church.
Right. Notorious hate group.
No, not notorious. Maybe notorious to you.
Oh, I see.
But you would have called Jesus a hate group then, too.
I see. These are born-again Christians, right?
You're a bigot, you know that?
These are born-again Christians. Are you a born-again Christian?
Yes, I am.
What's the second book in the Bible?
What's the second book in the Bible? It's Exodus. Why? Are you it's a Bible quiz now?
Which,
you want me there?
What's the third book? Which of the four gospel writers has the longest account of the Sermon on the Mount?
Well, why don't we talk about...
I didn't think you'd know that.
The works of Christ. I know. I can answer those kind of questions.
Sure you can, of course. Because you're a good Christian. You're not just a Catholic hater. You're a good Christian.
You're a bigot. You know that?
No.
You think that Christianity is like an inferior...
Oh, sir, please, sir. Sir, I am a very unreligious man, but don't besmirch the name of Christianity in the name of an anti-papist group. I mean, come on.
You're baloney. Every Protestant major...
Yeah, at least I got a baloney guy.
Same thing.
What's the matter? Oh, I got a little flustered there, huh? I'm glad I came in. Woo! Well, these people don't think that we're swift enough here to realize the two people that suddenly want to talk about the Jewish Federation and call up at the exact same time aren't trying to pull a fast one on us. No, I mean, I just got off the boat, guy. I know, maybe you're kind of stupid. But I didn't just get off the boat. I've known this for a couple of years. Catch on to that stuff real quick. Off it is to a car phone. Hi there, Car. You're on there, WLS.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
I've been all day on and off listening to it. Today's been a pretty heavy day for Vietnam issues. I'm calling up partly because a lot of people probably heard Stacy's show with the Vietnam vets and things in there, and I wasn't able to talk about it, but it was a primary issue in me, and also because of what was discussed a little while ago. I was a vet. I am a vet, and served in Vietnam. I was part of SEAL Team 2, which is a Special Forces operations group. And the war was not a pretty war. There's no question about it. It brought out a lot of issues when he was mentioning the draft and things like that. The draft wasn't a plot to get blacks and Hispanics like some people think.
I beg your pardon. I don't know anybody that said it was.
Well, he was maybe not a plot.
It wasn't a plot to get blacks and Hispanics. The draft was a game to keep white middle-class kids out of it.
Well, that's just it. They had the advantages and who was left. But a lot of people, too, most of the volunteers, the predominance of the volunteers were white, which took some of the whites out of the draft pool because they were already in.
No, I beg your pardon, sir. People weren't drafted by race.
No, I know that. I said it took them out of the draft pool. And then a lot of them also got the exemptions for the school or the congressional exemptions that we were talking about, which is also a very disgusting thing to all the vets.
Sure is.
But it wasn't, that was one of the reasons that primarily, or those were the two primary reasons why blacks and Hispanics seem to have been the largest drafted part of the portion of the draft, was because a lot of the whites had either volunteered or had gotten their school exemptions. I can remember
Sir, a lot of the whites volunteering had nothing whatsoever to do with the percentage of blacks and Hispanics who ended up being drafted, because the number of whites who volunteered in proportion to their percentage of the population was very, very small.
Okay, I can only go by...
It was deferment in the college and the getting married and knowing the right people.
That's true. I agreed with that. I said those are the two reasons. Anyway, going on beyond... a lot of us felt, though, it may not be popular at that time, but a lot of us felt that we had a duty to our country, whether they were right or wrong, and a lot of us felt that their purposes...
Never have a duty to your country, sir, when it's wrong.
Well,
never.
Up to a point.
No,
okay?
To no point whatsoever do you have a duty to your country. As a matter of fact, when you took your oath, you took an oath to not follow illegal orders.
Washington, D.C. mayor gives up the day-to-day duties of his office pending outcome of his court case. I'm Jim Johnson.
To equate the Alamo ministry with born-again Christians is repugnant. My problems with the Catholic Church, my problems with the fundamentalist wing of the Christian religion are well known, and I make no apology or excuse for them whatsoever. I have some very legitimate differences with them. But I am offended when someone like an Alamo follower would try to somehow make you believe that they're just another born-again church. They are not, by any stretch of the imagination. And some of the literature that I have seen from this organization, again, is repugnant. Again, I'll remind you of my personal disagreements with the Catholic Church and many of its policies and many of its practices. And they are legitimate disagreements. But I have seen literature from the Alamo organization that has been photographically retouched. Things like the Pope with horns and his penis displayed. We are talking about a very, very sick organization. You can have a disagreement with somebody, but being pornographic about it, no. So if you don't know who the Tony Alamo organization is or who Tony Alamo is, that's who he is. And he is disgusting. Regardless of whether you believe in God or you don't believe in God, or you're into religion or you're not into religion, anybody who is a decent human being would be repulsed by him. Completely, totally. To the phones again, we go to the north side. Hi, North. You're on the air, WLS.
Hello there.
Hi.
Where can I join up? Just kidding.
Okay.
Bob, the name of the game right now is civil obedience. What I mean by that is that those communities that are affected mostly by disproportionate amount of tobacco and alcohol through billboards ought to engage.
Really getting out of hand on this show, and I don't know who, except perhaps to a higher power, we might turn to get things back in a direction that we would all like to see them go in. And for that reason, I take a small portion of my relatively large salary and I keep out in the outer room there a well-connected woman who I occasionally call on to help us out. Sister, if you would come in, please. Sister, would you offer a prayer?
Dear God, in Jesus' name, help Mr. Lassiter to put the life back into his show so that he does not lose his livelihood. In Jesus' name, okay?
I thought you ended prayers with a amen, not okay.
Okay, Mr. Lassiter, amen.
Thank you very much, sister. You can go back out there and sit until we need you again. Walt Keegan, hi, Walt. You're on the air at WLS.
Yes, hello, Bob.
Hi.
I have a small problem in that, your story about how you went to the draft 3 times and all the examinations and everything.
Mm-hmm. I'll bet you a nickel you're going to come down on me.
Well,
kind of missing the entire point that it was the system.
Well, no. My problem is you kind of hurt your credibility with me.
Oh.
This is because about 3-4 weeks ago when you were talking about the Panama Canal. You had a gentleman call who identified himself as a veteran.
Yeah.
And he was acting a bit like a jerk. And he asked you if you had served. And I remember you told him that you had lost part of your leg in a childhood accident at the age of 11.
Both of them, right.
Huh?
Both of them.
So, both were, so you would have been drafted even with your artificial leg.
I don't have artificial legs.
Okay. Because you told me you had one.
No, I said, what if?
Oh, okay. Because I didn't catch that because you told him that you had lost a leg.
Because he was telling me that since I had not been in the military, I was a bad American. And that I wasn't qualified to have an opinion on things like that.
Oh, well, that's stupid.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of stupid, too, so I thought I'd make him feel even more stupid and said, well, I lost my legs when I was a kid. Couldn't be in the military, so can I still have an opinion? Or something like that.
Okay, because I just... Here's because it was like... All of a sudden I heard this one. I was like, wait a minute, that's not what you said a couple weeks ago.
Well, so sometimes we put some of our more befuddled friends on.
Okay.
We have been known to do that before, and we'll probably do it again in the future.
Okay, no problem then.
Thank you very much. 591-8900. Rogers Park. Hi there, Rogers. You're on there at WLS.
Hi, Bob. This
Hi.
is Al from Rogers Park.
How you doing?
Doing fine, and I still want to see your picture, not in the paper, but on the side of a bus.
On the side of a bus?
Yeah, because you were one time, I don't know how many shows ago it was or how many months ago, you were really down and you were telling everybody that, it sounded like you were getting ready to leave, and I told you, no, don't leave. Just wait until you get your picture on the side of a bus, and that's a sign you've made it in this town.
Well, that's...
But that's... You go ahead and comment if you want to, but that wasn't what I was calling about.
Okay. Because it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations. When you're in a business like mine, you like recognition. Let's be honest about it. Hey, you got to have an ego to be in this business. But when you get the recognition, then it usually bothers you because you can't go anyplace.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, people want your signature, and if you're not really into that, then...
Well, it's not so much the autographs. The autographs are frankly flattering, and in this kind of a business, it's not that much of a hassle. It's not like you're a movie star, but where it becomes a hassle is while you're out trying to have dinner or a drink or even, buy a new suit, people want to come up and start talking to you about the issues.
Oh, yeah. And they don't realize that you work at work and you don't work at home.
Exactly. About a year and a half ago, my wife and I were buying some new cookware at a store in Tampa. We're getting ready to buy some Calphalon, which is not the most expensive, but it's not the cheapest. And, you know, we're there debating amongst ourselves because I spend, and Muffy is, no. And we're almost having an argument over whether or not to buy this cookware, and if so, how much of it to get and what kind of it to get. And there's some poor soul walking down the aisle and says, oh, wow, Bob Lassiter. And he comes over and insists upon breaking into our conversation. That's the kind of thing I mean when it can sometimes be a real problem.
I can understand.
So no pictures on the side of the bus.
No. Well, I don't know if your screener gave you what my original reason was for calling or not, but I saw an article in the business section of the Trib yesterday that just floored me. There's a candy company here in Chicago out on the west side, Farley, or not Farley, but Brack. And they have 3,500 workers, and they're threatening to take their plant overseas because
they want sugar subsidies or something, right?
Did you read that?
Well, no, I didn't see it yesterday. I saw that story a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, well, I just saw it yesterday, and I didn't even know there was such a thing, that they're asking the U.S. Commerce Department to be declared a foreign trade zone plant.
Yeah.
And then if they get this, that they'll be able to buy sugar, foreign sugar, at the world price, which is half of the import-protected domestically produced sugar, and they'll save $20 million a year. But the thing is, then they go on, they tell you, well, Brack's, their union, you know, their Teamsters Local 837, and they pay their production line workers $18 an hour in wages and benefits. And this other company, Farley, pays far less than that because they're non-union, you know. But they're moving into Brack's area where Brack got out about 2 years ago. So essentially what's happening here is if they get this, they'll stay if they can buy foreign sugar or a foreign product. That's what they're saying anyway.
Right.
But if they don't get it, they're going to take it out of the country, naturally, because they can get cheaper labor.
And, of course, eliminate 3,500 customers.
That's right. And Farley will only be able to pick up, according to this article, another 300 people because they're going to put in they're proposing to put in a plant right where Brack moved out about a year and a half ago.
It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. It's one of the very, very tough things that we're facing in this country. You can't keep shipping the jobs overseas. By the same token, you can't go broke. By the same token, you can't be held up. It's a very, very difficult situation.
Well, and as an addendum to that, in this article, Brack was bought in 1986 by a Swiss-owned by a Swiss company, Jacob Suchard, or however you pronounce that, Schard. So, you know, it's a situation where it's not just a domestically owned company that's saying it's going to leave.
No, and frankly, it really sounds like an attempt at union busting is what it really is.
Exactly.
And I just keep coming back to a guy that also had competition, very stiff competition. And as a matter of fact, his competitors used to pay their workers far less than he did. And every time the guy wanted to get richer, he would raise his workers' salary, improve his product, and lower his price. And he got to be awfully rich. His name was Henry Ford.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, my friend.
This is WLS, Talk Radio 890.
WLS, Chicago.
At the sound of the tone, 6 o'clock.
Here's Bob Lassiter.
We're not expected to reciprocate and have you...
I don't expect anything. Just relax. We're going to a restaurant. You'll be all right.
Welcome back, Fun Seekers. Friday, January 19th, 1990. Lassiter at WLS Talk Radio 890, Chicago's talk station, at least until 7. I don't know, maybe... Gosh, things are going so good this afternoon. Maybe we'll blow out Sally Jesse and just go till 9. Yeah, believe that. You believe my... That's a nice story. Back to the telephones we go. Elgin, hi there, Elgin. You're on the air at WLS.
Hello.
Hi.
I just want to say I've just been listening. I haven't listened very much before, but I just have some questions to ask you.
Sure.
I'm just wondering, I hear everything people have been saying lately, like on your show, and I hear all the hatred everyone has. And I'm just wondering, what am I supposed to be doing here? I mean, what is the right thing for me to do?
Do you mean as a caller? Or as, just
like,
a citizen?
Why am I here?
Why are you in Elgin?
No.
Bad break, I suppose.
What should I do with my life? What is it that I should do, What is the right thing to do?
Well, I wouldn't I wouldn't go after a job that required me to answer a lot of questions. Hyde Park, hi, you're on the air at WLS.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Oh, good. Great show. I'm concerned, Bob, about child abuse. The case in Chicago where that terrible man hung the little boy upside down in the closet,
yep.
And the California case and what have you. I have a theory at this point that probably will anger many of your callers. I've chosen not to have kids, and I do work with kids. I guess they range from 15 to 19. In the last 5 years, I've never seen so many emotionally needy kids. I'm very curious why people have children. I ask my friends and anyone else I can. I even asked my mom. I said, Mom, why did you have me? And she was honest. I was an accident, product of World War II. Is it ego? Most people can't afford them, nor do they have the emotional temperament for them. And we have all these child abuse cases and all these other things. What do you think, Bob?
I think
everybody. One more thing, because I do respect your opinion. Everybody says, "Oh, I want to move to Longheadsville, have 2.3 children in the station wagon." Children are expensive. They're emotionally draining, and most people I find have the children either by accident or they're on the ego trip. What do you think about this?
Well, I think there's no two ways about it. There are some people whose egos demand that they have offspring, but I don't believe that to be a very large percentage. The fact of the matter is that, we are virtually all raised from day one to grow up and become what? Mommies and daddies.
You and I haven't.
Well, yes, I was. I just didn't do it.
Well,
and you haven't done it.
Yeah, because they put a tiny tear doll in my bed. I wanted to play with my brother's electric train.
It's an instinctive thing, and if it's not instinctive, then it's driven into you. That's what we're expected to do, to grow up and become mommies and daddies.
But everyone is not economically or emotionally capable to be mommies and daddies.
I'm quite aware of that. As a matter of fact, in my humble opinion, probably a majority, maybe not a large majority, but I think a majority of people are not fit parents.
This is what I'm saying, and I deal with so many emotionally needy children. I'm not saying they're physically or sexually abused, but you can be mentally abused.
Sure.
So I become more surrogate mother in the course of a day sometimes than I am anything else.
But here's the flip side of the problem. Do you want to live in a world where people tell you who and who is not going to have children?
No,
me neither.
That was not my issue. My issue was that, and of course my peers, my coworkers, when they talk about this like you are, the fact that I am now divorced, I have no children, I can do pretty much whatever I want. I don't have a young formative mind watching me and a certain behavior. And many of our single moms now want to do what a single woman can do with no children, with a little formative mind watching. Maybe Mr. Jones doesn't.
Many of our married moms now want to do the same thing.
Well, I'm not going to get into that. I'll just say...
and many of our married dads want to do the same thing.
Exactly. And so my contention is, if you really don't want to sacrifice economically and emotionally, this is almost the 21st century, why have the children?
Well, let us examine who is most likely to have a child. Another child. Come on, you're 22, 23 years old. You haven't the vaguest idea what the hell's going on. Most of the time, by your 40, you haven't caught on totally.
So, tell me about it.
So, it seems like kind of a romantic thing to do. Come on, Johnny, let's start a family. Okay, Mary?
Yes. And on the flip side, I am now just beginning to get, as 9th graders, 10th graders, the beginnings of the children on a great scale who had children. These are parents that are coming from, let's say, 74, 75, maybe 75, 76. I call these post-Vietnam parents. First generation where the girls were allowed to go to school pregnant. Now I am getting the young kids. Bob, you wouldn't believe.
Oh, very sad. It's tragic.
Since September, 7 of my girls pregnant.
Wow.
Either they've delivered or they're expecting.
7 out of how many?
Normal course of a day, out of, let's say, 120 girls, 100, and let's just say 100 girls.
Wow.
7 since September either have had their babies or expecting. 2 have delivered baby number 2. Baby number 1 is not 1 year old now.
Okay, and there's a half a year to go.
Exactly. Again, I do enjoy your show.
Well, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Take care. 591-8900, an open afternoon. It's in celebration of the weekend. Well, you're always trying, for things in this business, and I have discovered, for some bizarre reason, if I say I'm celebrating something, Open Phones works for me. Because Open Phones never works for me. If I come out and say, okay, Open Phones, I sit here and talk to myself. I look at a blank von Ortner. I go crazy. But I don't know why. When I first came here, on Fridays we called it happy hour. For 3 or 4 weeks it worked fantastically. Then it stopped working. So I stopped doing happy hour. And just kind of as a ruse, one day when my picture was published in the... I said, in celebration of the picture, we would do Open Phones. It was great. I came back 2 days later and I said, we're still celebrating, and it was great. And here I am back a week and a half with it, and it's great. I don't know why these things work. If I did, I'd become a consultant. Which I try to do now, but nobody listens to me. I can't imagine them paying me for. To the northwest side we go. Hi there, Northwest. You're on the air at WLS. Hi.
Hello, Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard you earlier when I was coming home from work, and I just couldn't get through, but I finally got through, and I was getting your gun comments, if you want to call it that. Mm-hmm. And you were wondering how to get guns. If I could read you, I've got another one, but a short one on Patrick Purdy, who's probably the most famous.
I'd rather you tell me what it says than read it to me.
Okay, on that day, Purdy would have been in jail except for repeated failures of the criminal justice system to put him away. It had plenty of chances. 1979, arrested for extortion and possession of dangerous weapons. 1980, arrested for sex crimes. 1982, arrested for possession of drugs. 1983, arrested for dangerous weapons. 1983, arrested for receiving stolen property.
I get the point here. We got a man with a very long arrest record, and you are partially right.
And
the guy should have never been on the street.
Arrested on weapons charges and resisting arrest. Probation called him a danger to himself and others 7 times.
Okay, I got the picture, and you're partially right. He should have never been on the street, and that is a failure of the justice system, which is a very bizarre one in California. But there's another failure here, and that is a failure of society as a whole to police itself in keeping people like him from buying weapons. We've got a double problem here, at least.
Now you're agreeing with the NRA. That's what I want to get. That's exactly what the NRA wants. They don't want these people to have guns, but the media turns everything around on the NRA.
Well, you see, it's not because the man has a criminal record I don't want him to have guns. It's because the man is unstable.
Well, his criminal record would have been felony charges, would not allow him to own a gun, but he plea bargained that down to where they're misdemeanors as a result. The man did not have a felony record. He could buy all the guns he wanted because our criminal justice system said you're only a misdemeanor. That's the problem.
Well, no, it's half the problem, because then society also says, well, since it's only a misdemeanor, you can still have a gun.
Right. But that's the reason. Yeah, it should have been felony charges.
Well, it doesn't make any difference. Felonies or misdemeanors. The man was clearly not playing with a full deck.
All right, and it should have been listed that way. Now, the NRA, I heard a little bit of NRA knock, sort of, but I'm 1,000% behind the NRA because people usually never get the reasons behind the bills why NRA opposes them. The media will never tell you that.
Nonsense. The NRA opposes. They will tell you why they oppose any form of legislation. It's because they're afraid that it'll lead to yet another oppressive step and yet another oppressive step.
It will eventually.
Well, then don't say, nobody will ever tell you why.
They supported, one thing they supported was the McCollum Amendment, which meant, like, when you go in with your credit card and you run it through the grocery store or whatever, there's an immediate check that you have good credit. And that's what they supported, so that when you wanted to purchase a gun, you would run a card, it would go on the central computer, and they would be able to tell if you would have found a weapon.
They don't care if you beat your wife. They don't care if you kick your dog around. They don't care if you get into barroom fights. They don't care if you have a lousy driving record. They don't care if you're half blind.
A bad driving record does not constitute not owning a firearm.
Well, I beg your pardon, sir. A gentleman or a lady who demonstrates time and time and time again that they just have no respect for human life and drive recklessly. I'm not talking about a 57 mile-an-hour speed ticket once in your life and a 55 mile-an-hour zone. I'm talking about somebody that might have 6 reckless driving tickets.
Okay. I thought you just meant, driving, but...
everybody's in favor of keeping guns out of the hands of criminals, i.e. people who have demonstrated
a lot of people want to take the guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens.
No, there aren't. No, there aren't. There are people who would like to take the guns out of hands of people who shouldn't have them.
I'll tell you what you got to get is a copy of Gun Week and find out what's really in the bill, because they'll tell you the right side, not like the Sun-Times and the Tribune who tell you the slanted side.
Right, sir. The Sun-Times and the Tribune are notorious organizations for trying to take guns out of the hands of good, decent people because the editorial board of both papers want to take over the city of Chicago, and they think it would be a lot easier if people like yourself weren't armed. 591-8900 to the southwest side of Chicago we go. Hi there, Southwest. You're on the air at WLS.
Yeah, hi, Bob.
Hi.
I tell you, Bob, about this separation thing, David Duke. I feel that the only thing going to solve the racial problem in America, especially Chicago, is integration. We have to integrate. There must be blacks and whites walking together down the street. Blacks and whites must learn to eat at each other's homes and have parties with one another and get to know one another. And that's going to solve the whole issue, the mystique and the name calling. So, for instance, Mississippi, when I was there, when I was a kid, it was terrible. But now, man, it's more integrated there than anything now. You can go to the town and you see blacks and whites man their own business and nobody really, it's just not like it used to be. And I think the only thing going to solve the problem in the Midwest is more integration, more blacks.
Well, I partially agree with you. The actual physical integration is very, very important so that we stop fearing each other.
Right, because, another thing too, Bob,
but there's
the government should force integration.
But there's something even more important that the government can't force, that only the people can bring about, and that is economic integration.
Yeah.
We have to have more in common economically. We have to have equal opportunity at jobs. We have to have equal opportunity at housing. We have to have...
True, very true. But I feel also that the government should force integration. They should force it if the government forces it.
They do.
Well, they should force it more because the government forces integration. I think blacks and whites should live in the same neighborhood. They should live in the same restaurant.
No.
Visit one another's homes and get to know one another.
You're not suggesting that people should be forced to move from one neighborhood to another.
I don't mean that, but I just mean that they should get to the point where where color don't mean nothing no more, where race don't mean nothing no more. Just your name. Your name is Bob. I know you're white, but all I know is you Bob. I don't have to look at your skin and just be scared of you like you're a Martian or alien. I think we have to integrate. Blacks and whites have to walk down the street with one another, talk with one another, interact with one another without being suspicious and scared of one another. Mississippi is different now. It's very integrated there. We have to live next door to one another. We have to go each one another's house. We'll have a party with one another. We got to invite one another over each other's house for dinner. Sit at the same dinner table, talk with one another, go to the same churches. And then after a while, everything starts being normal. There won't be no more racism. As long as there's segregation and separation, there's going to be racism.
One of the more amusing, I don't know how amusing, interesting things that has happened in this country, and an awful lot of Northerners don't realize it, is that the South is far more progressive in terms of integration than the North is.
It is.
And the North, of course, still seems to think the South is a hotbed of segregation, and it isn't. It's the North, and it always has been.
It is, Bob. I mean, Mississippi is so integrated now. You like to pass a White House, next maybe 4 or 5 miles down the road there'll be a black house, and another black house, another white house, and it's just people just mind their own business there. Here in Chicago, there must be more integration. Blacks and whites have to start living in the same apartment building. They got to start inviting each other over each other's homes. They got to start walking together. They got to start intermarrying. Marrying each other's interracial marriage. Have to be pushed. It's time out for segregation. It's going to year 2000 now. We have to throw this thing behind. It's time for forced integration.
Thank you much. 591-8900, 591-8900. This time it is off to Steger. Hi there, Steg. You're on the air at WLS.
Hello, Bob.
Hi.
Great show.
Thanks.
Appreciate you. I'd like to see you on from 1 o'clock until 7.
I'll bet you would.
I sure would.
Yeah, trying to kill me.
Well, I have to listen to that guy, even though I don't care for his show, and I know it's a syndicated show. But what I wanted to talk about was Senator Moynihan's proposal to cut the Social Security taxes. I would like to suggest that could be called a trickle-up effect versus Mr. Bush's trickle-down effect.
Well, it's the only way economics really works is to trickle up.
Right.
Rich people are the only people that think it works trickle down.
I know. there's such an inequity. I wonder whatever happened to the graduated income tax.
Well, you have to understand that the Moynihan proposal is not so much to put more money back into the economy, because those monies have to be replaced. What the Moynihan scheme, plan, call it whatever you want, is to demonstrate clearly to anybody that doesn't understand that A, there is no Social Security Trust Fund, B, all we are doing is playing games with the budget. And this is a brilliant scheme in order to pass off taxes to the working class people. Because the working class people are the ones who pay the bulk of the Social Security taxes. A guy that's earning $500,000 a year, what he puts out in Social Security is damn near nothing. It's something around $4,000 a year is the max right now. I don't remember the exact figure, but it's close enough to call it $4,000. But a guy making $30,000 a year is paying out something around $2,200 in Social Security taxes. And his percentage of income to tax is far, far greater than a wealthy man. And this is one of the things that Moynihan is trying to point out to people.
Well, I hope he pushes it through.
Looks
there
like
was an article in the Tribune last Tuesday about America's growth inequities, or inequalities, I should say. And there was one statement there where the professor from the University of Ohio, Miami, Mr. Christensen, he said that the top 1% of American households own 34% of the national wealth.
Probably true. It's probably true. It's a situation that has existed almost from the beginning of this country. It vacillates back and forth somewhat. Trying to think of the numbers I can't right now off the top of my head. But yeah, sure, it's probably true.
Yeah, well, the 33% cap on taxes, that seems to me that it should be raised.
Not 33, it's 28.
Oh, it's actually 28.
Yeah, I know that there's a little quirk there, so for some people it looks like 33, but it's still 28.
Well, there was an article in the paper about Mr. Milliken, I guess. He had his Social Security taxes paid by 20 minutes after 12 on New Year's Day.
I know these guys. I think it's 50, the top now is 53,600 or something like that. It's less than 54,000. Beyond that, you pay no Social Security tax. And, I'm sorry, it's just not fair to take people who are earning 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand a year and make them pay 7.65% of their income to money that goes clearly into the general revenue fund to disguise the fact that the deficit's even bigger.
And that's projected to be $1 trillion by the year 2000?
There is no trust fund. There never was intended to be. There's never... The only thing that the Social Security Administration can do with excess funds that they don't pay out in benefits is to buy government bonds.
Why can't they invest it in the private sector?
You won't want them doing that.
Oh, I sure do.
Oh, no, you don't.
Why not?
Well, suppose they decided to put all of the trust fund into IBM stock about 2 years ago at $160 a share, and now it's 98.
No, they'd have to spread it out throughout the market.
You don't want them to do that, I promise you.
Really?
No, you don't want the government getting into investing pension fund money. That's a tough enough job for people who do it professionally. You don't want some government employee getting $57,000 a year handling a $1 trillion pension fund. No, I promise you that one.
Okay, thanks again, Bob.
Thank you. Show. Be good. 591-8900 to the north side we go. Hi there, North. You're on the air.
Yeah, Bob. I was going to talk about this deal with the stadium, but I changed my mind since I heard that caller a couple of callers ago talking about the integration thing.
Yeah.
Now, I don't agree with that. I think that if people want to integrate or whatever, they should be, of course, free to do so.
Well, that's what he was talking about.
I live in an integrated neighborhood. No, he's talking about the government or other people being forced to do things.
No, that's because I questioned him on that. All he was basically talking about is the government enforcing the laws that are currently on the books.
Well, I believe that the laws in the book should be enforced to some extent. But the thing is that I believe the African Americans should be free to have their own institutions and have their own schools and their own neighborhoods.
Separate but equal. I see.
If they want
They should be free to be segregated.
If they want to.
Yeah.
You know,
you should be free to move any place you want to.
No, I shouldn't be free. I would never move into an African American neighborhood because
you should have the freedom to do so, shouldn't you?
No, I have more respect for them.
So wait, let me see if I have this right. You have so much respect for black people that you should not be allowed to move into their neighborhoods. And of course, it would only be fair that they wouldn't be allowed to move into yours.
No, but I live in an integrated neighborhood, so they can move into mine, and I've moved into here. But what I'm saying is there's certain neighborhoods like Chatham and places like that with nice kept houses and wonderful people that live there, and there's no reason that they should be forced to accept the same people who fled that neighborhood when they moved in there.
WLS, Talk Radio 890. Now, back to Bob Lassiter.
Catherine Johns and Fast Eddie, by the way, in on Monday for Mr. Don Wade and Roma. As a matter of fact, I believe that's Monday through Thursday, if memory serves me correct. Back to the phones we go to a car phone. Hi, Car, you're on the air at WLS.
Hi, Bob. I feel like an idiot after that last caller. You know, he was really articulate and everything.
Yeah, I sure got him all wrong.
I had him pegged off. I've had him all wrong, too. I wanted to call about, I think it was 2 callers or 3 callers ago, when you guys were talking about taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think taxes are a little higher than 28%.
No, they're not.
I think when...
No, there's a 33% bracket on a certain level of income, but it still works out to 28.
But you got to realize that you're being taxed every way down the line. You get corporate taxes, where the corporations can get taxed before they pay the employees, and that means that employees are taxed. If you're going to talk about the trickle down theory or whatever you want to talk about, you got them taxed too. Then if you get sales tax, you got another 7%. So it's still 35. I think you can add another 10%. Personally.
Well, it still falls heaviest on the working man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, most definitely, because they get hit.
But we were talking about federal income taxes, okay?
Okay.
Because obviously, I suppose you could add in your property taxes,
Yeah.
So forth and so on. We were talking about federal income taxes, but thank you for pointing that out. To Des Plaines we go. Hi there, Des. You're on the air at WLS.
Is it me?
Yeah, it's you.
Oh, okay. I'd like to comment on about the Social Security taxes. If I recall right there, Social Security tax program was enacted back in 33 or 34, wasn't it?
I think you recall basically, right? Yeah.
And that act was put in by a Congress and a president at that time, and they decided they're going to put all that money into one great fund with the rest of the revenue for the government. And no Congress or president since that time, 1933 or 34, has decided to put it into another fund.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong.
One guy.
You're wrong.
One guy was wrong.
You're wrong.
Who's that?
Well, sir, when they said that all you could do with the money was buy government bonds, it was just double talk. Who do you buy the government bonds from, sir? The government. What happens to the money? It goes into the general revenue.
Well, that's what I meant, yeah.
So it's what it always did.
General revenue.
It's what it always did. It was just an intermediary step where they exchanged some paper.
I agree, you're 100%. But I think then the war came on, World War II, and all the money from Social Security just funded the war. And then we came after the war, 1946, no Congress, no president decided, hey, we should make a separate fund. They just kept on doing the same
You can't make a separate fund. What are you going to do with the money?
Well, you put it for future for...
Where? Where are you going to put it?
Well, the government could have invested the money into different...
What, the stock market?
No.
Oh. Or commercial real estate?
No, the thing is, they just...
What are they going to invest it in?
Well, what was the plan of putting it in? I mean, all these people paid all this money.
They never planned on putting it in, sir. It's a transfer program. I pay in $1. If you're retired, you get the $1.
But you don't get... Well, yeah. But the thing is, with private insurance programs, you could do a heck of a lot better. They should have somehow figured out a way to try and do like the insurance companies do and let the money compound. I mean, you look at an insurance program, you can put money, and I'm not in the insurance business, so I don't know, but basically you put money into an insurance business, insurance policy, you can compound that money and do a heck of a lot better for what you put into it and your employer. than what the Social.
Of course, unless you happen to pick an insurance company that goes broke, they do sometimes, you know.
Oh yeah, right. But that part, that's my comment on Social Security. Try now let everyone pay. Why should a person? You only get a maximum out of it. I don't know what the maximum. I'm not ready to retire. I retire in 10 years. I don't know, but I don't know what the maximum is right now. You get out of it. So why should a person put in because he makes more money, put in more money, and only get a maximum that someone maybe?
That's because there are a lot of the money that goes into Social Security supposedly doesn't go into Social Security.
That's what I'm getting at.
Well, then, sir, since it's really a general tax anyway, why stop it above a certain income level?
Well, that's your. I didn't understand. That's your thinking then.
Yes, that's my thinking. Elmwood Park. Hi, Elm. You're on the air at WLS.
Hey, Bob.
Hi.
I enjoy your show. I respect your opinion, and I'm a truck driver. I'd like to call in many other times, and never could. I just had a comment about most of the problems, it seems, in everyday life are related to money. The problems about the Vietnam War, holding the government responsible for their actions. I mean, it just seems like everything, all the problems.
Or sex. Or sex.
I'm sorry.
Money or sex.
Money or sex.
Or religion.
Yeah.
Or ego.
Or ego, or just greed, personal greed. It's just a shame that people can't do things. Wait, I'm all nervous. This is my first time.
You're doing fine.
Losing my train of thought. It's.
Well, what you're saying in essence is that all troubles can be traced back to just a relative handful of sources.
Yeah.
And you're right.
And it's like for your comments today on a thorough background investigation for possessing firearms.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't they do it? Probably because they'd have to pay people to do that. You know, governments or.
No, it's because most people that own guns would probably, well, I shouldn't say most, a lot of people who own guns would be washed out in the process. That's why they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And most people who don't own guns are apathetic.
Yeah.
The only people who really care about the right to own handguns are people that own them.
Yeah. True.
And a lot of them are the kind of people that would be washed out. That's why it's not going to happen. Should happen, but it won't.
Yeah. You know, I sometimes wonder how did people exist before money was ever made? You know.
Jeez, I don't know. I'm not quite that old, but sure I know someone who is.
If
Johnson,
maybe a couple hundred years ago, if you wanted a house, like the first settlers coming there, they wanted a house. Everybody pitched in and built. Money.
Mankind tends to get along better during hard economic times when people have more in common, like, no money. That's something to have in common, and that's when people do things like build each other's houses and have each other over for dinner more. And the more money that you have, the more isolated you become, and the less concern you have for your fellow man's problems. So as absurd as it sounds, and it does sound absurd, prosperity is not good for mankind.
Yeah.
However, I still enjoy prosperity.
Oh,
Thank you,
sure.
my young friend. I appreciate it. Off it is to Calumet City. Hi, Cal. You're on the air at WLS.
Yeah, Bob, does that mean you're going to invite me over for dinner because you've been more prosperous these days?
No, sir. I'll invite you over to dinner when I'm not prosperous.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was saying.
Okay.
No, man, people tend to care for each other and look out for each other more during times of economic hardship.
Well, I'm going through some of that now. If you want some dinner, come on down. I just finished a bowl of beans. I wanted to disagree with something, one of your final comments, and I forget whether it was Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay.
Somebody was commenting about or complimenting you about your articulation and so forth, and you said it was no special magic, and I disagree. It is a special magic. You've evidently managed to learn how to...
Did I say that?
Yes, you said it was no special magic. It's just common sense. And it's not, that's one of the most uncommon things.
If you're talking about what I say, not how I say it, because I know it's a special magic how I say it, but is it...
Both, my friend.
Well...
We're taught what to think, not how.
Yeah, I guess I'm
It's a special talent to be able to to take an issue and throw it into the cup and rattle around and see how it falls out. And put it back in there and, projecting ahead and then looking at all the different ramifications. I'm trying real hard to give you a compliment because I think you are special.
Well, you're kind, and I appreciate it.
The other thing that I had on my mind is Tuesday's USA Today had a little brief blurb about, they're talking about shutting trucks down on the 28th.
Who's talking about it? You mean a trucker strike?
Because I didn't see it. I heard about it.
You mean like a trucker strike?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And ABC here in Chicago evidently caught wind of it, and they sent somebody down to Cincinnati to talk to an all-night truckers host.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't heard another word about it anywhere.
I haven't heard anything about it.
No, you're talking about the Sun-Times and the Chicago Trib you mentioned a little bit ago. It sounded a little bit sarcastic about how they were trying to take over the city.
Is this possibly some type of protest against the relatively high Illinois diesel fuel tax?
It's a combination of everything, Bob. As a matter of fact, in Illinois, I haven't heard about it. But it's a combination of everything. They're saying that the Illinois fuel tax and the sudden gouge by the oil companies of the fuel prices going, well, I had a 36% increase just in 1 month. They're talking about that's just the last straw. If they talk about logbooks, I can get a ticket for a logbook in Indiana for $63. I go to Maryland, it's $350. They're trying to turn it into a $1,500 fine in New York.
What's a logbook? What do you mean?
I have to keep track of how many hours I drive and how many hours I work.
I thought that was the Interstate Commerce Commission. I didn't realize that was a state-by-state thing.
It's state to state as far as what the fine is.
Oh, really?
Commerce says you got to do it, but then they turn it over to the states to regulate it and to check on it and to fine us for it in case we don't or we do it wrong.
That's interesting. And how much does it vary again?
Well, like I said, in Lake County, Indiana, I got one about a month and a half ago because I was more than 4 hours behind. Maybe it was 8. I've forgotten now. $63.10.
Mm-hmm.
In Maryland, it'll be $350.
Wow.
They're trying to turn it into a $1,500 fine in New York. They're trying to send me to jail if I have an accident in my truck and happen to have a radar detector in the truck. Now, it can be in the sleeper where I'm trying to keep it out of sight so it can't be stolen. But if it's in the truck and I have an accident, somebody runs into me, then I can go to jail. And, $2,300 for a license plate to run coast to coast.
In Indiana, can a passenger car owner or driver also go to jail for having an accident with a radar detector in the vehicle?
No, this is New York that's trying to do the jail sentence for only in the truck.
Only in the truck. Well, that doesn't seem fair.
That's New York that's trying to get that one through.
And actually, I dislike radar detectors, and I find it kind of a novel idea to send somebody to jail who has one in his vehicle when he has an accident, but not just truck drivers. That's outrageous.
Yeah. Well, the idea, they're talking about the speed limits, and in Illinois, there's places I'm allowed to go 50 because I've got a truck when you can go 65.
Yeah, I've seen that.
In general, on the interstates, I can go 55 in Illinois, when you can go 65. I go to Indiana, I'm allowed to go 60. I go on some of the interstates and toll roads in Wisconsin, I can go 65. I've got varying speed limits in each state. And you've got 65 all the time. And now, if I go to Indiana, or even here in Illinois where I'm downstate, I'm rolling along at 55, and you run underneath my tailgate because you're doing 65 and not paying attention, they'll make me take a drug test, not you. These are some of the issues that have been coming up over and over again, and what they're saying is that the fuel is the last straw. It's just time to shut them off, and let's get it all sorted out.
You going to take part in it?
I haven't really made up my mind yet. I don't really know.
Can you afford to?
I can't say that I can afford to, but I can't afford to keep going this way. Like I said, the 1st November I was paying $1.02 per gallon for fuel. Right now I'm paying about $1.23. The week after the New Year, it was up to $1.38 for me here in Cook County.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that's, like I said, that represents better than 35% increase.
It's hefty. Real
almost
hefty.
40% increase. And, my revenue does that. A 40% increase is $125 off of my table.
Well, my friend, unfortunately, you live and do business in a state where people like to pass along their bills to somebody else.
Yeah, I agree. That's nation. Excuse me.
There aren't that many truck drivers out there, so to hell with them.
Oh, there's a lot of them, but there's
well, not when you're talking about. Not when you're talking.
None of us have phones in the truck.
Well, not when you're talking about an entire population of the state. The number of people who earn their living driving long haul trailer trucks are relatively small.
Yeah, but on the other hand, we got back to what I called about in the first place. You were saying something about the newspapers wanting to take over the city, and then it kind of indicated to me, I thought that you were defending, talking about how.
I was being
nervous. Last time
I was being facetious.
Nervous too.
I was being facetious.
That's what I thought, and it sounded like you were saying left-handedly that the newspapers do a fine job of presenting and covering all the news. And there's one that they've missed, and evidently ABC picked up on it. I haven't seen anything about it yet, but it was only last night they were down there talking to the fellow there in Cincinnati.
Very interesting. I thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Thank you.
Take care.
I'd be happy to give you a place where you could get more information on the problem if you want to. Even 800.
Do it real quick.
Okay, 800. 444-5791. Todd Spencer. That's the Owner-Operators Independent Drivers Association of America.
Okay.
And he'll be happy to give you all kinds of information on what's going on, because I seriously think it would make an interesting segment.
Thank you very much. I've got to run. I am out of time for the day. Just seconds away from my weekend. Oh, I need this weekend bad. You guys, of course, will behave yourselves, will you not? You'll be back to, fatten my wallet with 43 cents a call on Monday. Love you, Chicago.